The timetable board in our station never lies. It can flicker and stutter and cough up wrong platforms, but when it says a train has left, that train has left. There is comfort in that kind of certainty when you spend your life in the weather of people. My name is Marko. I run the evening shift at North River Station, a building of old brick and new glass that sits like a lighthouse for those who prefer rails to waves. In winter, the platforms steam in the cold. In summer, the city hums and the pigeons learn to read the bakery schedule. I wear a jacket with silver trim and a badge that means I can open doors, and I have a set of keys that, in theory, makes the place obey me. In practice, stations obey only timetables. My wife, Lydia, writes feature pieces for a city magazine, small histories of streets, profiles of people who became their skills, essays on why certain corners smell like childhood. We met when she interviewed me about a conductor who played violin for commuters. She asked questions like someone with a map of everything. I told her where to stand to hear the trains sing in the curve. She laughed like rain after heat. We married 2 years later in a small hall near the river, where the windows made everyone honest. For 10 years, we built a life in the shape of a conversation we liked having. Our apartment looked over the tracks, which some friends called a flaw, and we called music. We learned the timetable by heart, her deadlines, my late nights, our mornings with toast and headlines. Even our arguments had a schedule: never before coffee, never past midnight, never on the day my mother phoned. We were boring in the specific way I had prayed for. I can tell you the exact moment that went away. It was March. The city was between seasons, snow pretending to be rain. I was at the station office over a cup of coffee that tasted like bad ideas when her message arrived. Running late, don't wait, we'll eat at office. That was normal. What wasn't normal was the paper bag I found later behind the tram kiosk when I went to ask the vendor to tone down his music. It was our bag, our bakery prints, the outline of a rye loaf in blue on the side. Inside, a half-eaten sandwich, a napkin with her lipstick. It takes a strange kind of vanity to recognize your wife's mouth on paper and call it evidence. I wouldn't have thought twice, except the napkin was tucked into a theater ticket stub. The theater was across town, and the time printed was 12:45 p.m. A matinee the magazine had not assigned her to review. There are 100 reasons people go to afternoon shows. There are 10,000 reasons people throw away bags behind kiosks. None of them felt like ours. But suspicion is a hungry animal. I fed it small things. Her phone moved from kitchen counter to handbag while she showered, like a child put away before guests arrive. On Wednesdays, she came home smelling of tobacco, a scent that did not belong to her. She bought a new coat, gray, with pockets deep enough to hide a winter. When I said it looked expensive, she smiled and said, "So is cold." 2 weeks later, the timetable board told a truth that my body had already begun to prepare for. The 21:05 to Veles was delayed 20 minutes. I made the announcement in my professional voice and watched people rearrange their faces. I like the patience of commuters. It's a loyalty that doesn't ask for applause. At 21:12, I was on the far platform checking the heaters when I saw Lydia. She stood at the end of platform 4, where the wind forgets to be polite. She wore the gray coat and the serious scarf, and the look a person uses when she has decided to let the night decide. She was not alone. The man beside her was the kind of man cities make when they want to prove they can. Late 30s, camera at his chest, hands that had learned how to always look like they were about to touch something. I knew his face in the way. You know a house you walk past often enough. He'd photographed 2 pieces for Lydia last autumn, and I had made him coffee in our kitchen while they worked on captions. His name was John. He was polite without being timid. He liked his lenses the way some people like religion. They didn't kiss. They stood close in the grammar of people who have been practicing. He showed her the back of the camera. She tilted her head. He touched her scarf with an intimacy as small as it was loud. When the train finally moaned into the station, they stepped back into its breath. She looked down the platform in my direction for a second too long, then looked away. They boarded car 3. The doors slid shut with a little sigh that has fooled better men than me. I made the departure call and watched the 21:05 leave, like a person leaves when he has rehearsed leaving. I had the keys to all sorts of doors that night. None of them mattered. I did not confront her when she came home after 11, cheeks iced, hair disobedient. She dropped her bag, smiled a tired apology, leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "Long day." I said, "Me too." We went to bed like a truce learning to walk. The thing about a station is that it loves a system. The thing about people is that we try to become systems to hide from our choices. The affair made a kind of timetable of its own. Mondays at lunch by the theater. Wednesdays sometimes after the 1940. Fridays not at all because Fridays are for friends. You learn this by not wanting to learn it and by learning it anyway, because love has made you into a person who inventories everything. I didn't read her messages. I didn't follow her car and mine. I am a man whose work depends on the discipline of not inventing emergencies. I waited for a better fact. It arrived the way most better facts arrive, uninvited, obvious, late. We have a small control room on the mezzanine where the monitors show a mosaic of stations and corners. You can't see faces well unless someone lingers. On a wet Thursday, the 1755 inbound halted between signals because of a technical hiccup. People backed up on the stairs, and the board promised a correction it couldn't schedule. I went into the control room to call operations. The monitor for the footbridge camera showed two people stopped at the top of the stairs. Even in a blur, I knew her coat. I knew his hands. She put her hand on the glass, and he put his hand on top of hers, and they laughed. And you could see in the laugh the story they were telling themselves about who they were. Lovers who had earned weather. I think if I had walked out there, climbed the steps and said their names, the mosaic would have rearranged. But I didn't. I kept my headset on and told operations to clear track 2. Then I went to the break room and made tea, the kind with too much lemon. If you have never tasted tea you made while deciding whether your marriage was on fire, I will spare you the recipe. That night I asked her again, in a kitchen that still believed we belonged in it, "Are you seeing him?" She put her hands around her mug and looked at the tile we laid the year we decided to not hate February anymore. "Yes," she said. There was kindness in that yes, and a cruelty she didn't intend. "Since when?" "Late autumn," she said. "It started as work. He needed someone who knew the neighborhoods as more than maps. I needed to feel noticed." "By me?" I asked and hated the way my voice sounded like a policeman's. "Or by anyone." "At him by someone who didn't tick off my life like a list he was winning," she said very softly. I wanted to be angry the way men like me imagine being angry. Instead, I was exact. "Do you love him?" "I love what I am with him," she said, and started crying in a way that became both an apology and an accusation. "I am not asking you to forgive me tonight. I'm asking you to hear the part where I say I got lost in a city I know by heart." "I know the timetables by heart," I said. "It doesn't mean I'm the train." She slept on the sofa because the bed had become specific. In the morning, we were polite because the first coffee of the day insists on pretending you're civilized. She left before 8. I went to work. In the station, I could feel the little moments that had always been invisible. The couples who separated at the stairs with a squeeze, they did not show their spouses. The strangers who shared a look because both of them were hearing a song at the same time. The city has always been unfaithful. So are riverbanks and promises and weather. It still runs. You will ask why I did not tell Jan to stop, why I did not find him and make an ancient argument with my hands. I will tell you that a station manager's hands are for keys and radios and doors. Also, the story would have made him interesting in a way he did not deserve. We tried counseling. The therapist's office had one plant that was trying to decide whether optimism had been a good investment. The therapist asked neither of us to apologize, and both of us to define words we were misusing. Lydia said the word lonely like it was a place. I said responsibility like it was a person. I surprised myself by admitting things that had nothing to do with Jan, like the way I sometimes loved my job because it excused me from having one more feeling at home. She surprised herself by describing the part of her that missed being someone's emergency and hated herself for missing it. We went 3 times. On the 4th appointment, she texted, "Stuck at interview. Can we move?" I told her I had a broken escalator and couldn't. This was a lie. I am embarrassed how often that sentence is true for men like me. Spring came, and the city removed its scarf. Everyone pretended it was forever. Lydia started running in the mornings. I heard her leave at 6 in shoes that knew how to announce discipline. Sometimes she came back smelling like a river. On 2 mornings, she didn't come back before I left for the station. Her cup sat clean on the rack, drying like an alibi. And then there was the magazine piece. It was published in May, a spread about the bridge that connects the South Warehouse District to the Arts Quarter, its history, the men who poured the original concrete, the women who painted the restoration, the teenagers who made out under it and pretended they were in films. The photos were John's. The prose was Lydia's. It was good work. If I had not been myself, I would have clipped it and put it on the fridge. But on the last page, a candid photo. A woman in a gray coat and a man with a camera standing in the bridge's shadow. The caption said something bland like, "Neighbors crossing." It was the one photo she had not shown me in draft. There is a difference between privacy and secrecy. I suddenly knew how to label it. I moved into the spare room that night. Our bed began to keep its own counsel. We ate dinner 2 days in a row at the table, and then for the rest of the week standing up. On Sunday, I took the 0620 shift and stayed until after dark, because it is easier to be useful than to be present. Summer arrived the way distant cousins do, overdressed, loud, brief. The station was busy with people going to grandparents and festivals and mistakes. One afternoon around 4, the 1615 inbound called a medical emergency in car 5. I ran down with the kit. A boy had fainted. His grandmother fanned him with a newspaper, a headline about the mayor we would forget by Tuesday. We did the little things that make a body remember its job. As I looked up 2 platforms away, I saw them again. John and Lydia, not touching, waiting for nothing together. I did my work. When the boy woke up, he said, "I saw the numbers become blurred," and I said, "That happens," and sent him to people in coats who like forms. The oddest thing about grief is how pragmatic it makes you. In July, I found a rental ad for a small apartment near the station, a 1-bedroom in a brick building where the hall smelled like cinnamon because someone on level 2 had decided to define the air. I signed the lease and moved in a week later with 3 boxes and a bicycle that had not forgiven the last winter. Lydia did not fight me. She came by with a bag of spices and a plant that I would later kill without confessing. We stood in my new kitchen, which was smaller than our old bathroom, and looked at each other like polite strangers who have read each other's names on badges. "Is this, a pause or a stop?" "Yeah," she asked. "The timetable says it's a transfer," I said, because I couldn't bring myself to announce the last station. "We will see if the connection exists." For a month it did not. We wrote to arrange the return of objects. Her blue cardigan, my father's watch I had left on her dresser, a book of poems with a train on the cover. Once late, she called. I didn't answer. She left a message that said nothing but my name. Twice, the second time the way you say a place when you are not sure you got off at the right stop. In August, the city baked. The rails expanded and contracted with logic I envied. Jan's work appeared in 2 places I couldn't avoid, a billboard over the market and the cover of the magazine's festival issue. Lydia's column that month was about traveling within the city without leaving it. She wrote about loops, about the way we returned to certain benches as if they were altars, about the barber who knows the year by the way hair grows. It was beautiful and fair and made me want to swear at nobody in particular. I saw John once near the station cafe. He was with a friend, not Lydia. He nodded as if our deal included pleasantries. "Marko," he said, lifting his coffee halfway. "Hot day." It is humiliating what men do to sound civilized. I said, "It is," and walked past. My keys knocked against my thigh like a small applause. Everything ends, or rather, everything decides what kind of ending it intends. Ours decided one afternoon in September when the air remembered how to behave. Lydia asked to meet at the station, beneath the old clock. That clock had been wrong for 3 months until a man with a ladder and a patient wife fixed it for free because his father had proposed under it. We stood beneath it like 2 people who had arrived too early for a movie. She said, "I told him no," and then, "He asked me to leave with him. He has a job in Vienna for 6 months. He wanted me to be his answer to a question I have not finished asking." "And what did you want?" I asked. "I wanted to want to go. she said. But when I packed a bag in my head, your name kept showing up on every shirt. Is this the part, I said, where we forgive each other and make a list about how it will be different? I don't know, she said. I think it's the part where I tell you I can no longer be two people, even if the second person is the one who used to think you could rescue me from myself. I never could, Mom, I said. I am good at keys, not rescues. Honor, she took my hand and placed something in it. Her wedding ring. It was warm, like a coin that had sat in someone's palm too long. Keep it safe, she said, until I am someone I trust with it again. That might mean never. If it does, forgive me for giving you the wrong address. We sat on a bench and did the arithmetic of endings. We spoke of money and paperwork, of boxes and names on mail, of her grandmother's clock that lived in our apartment and would not enjoy moving. We decided she would keep the apartment for now because the plant might survive her and would not survive me. We decided I would send her the ring if I knew, without bitterness, that sending it was the thing to do. At dusk, when the station lights learned their old shadows, I walked her to the entrance. She kissed my cheek, not ours, not the mouth, and said, "Thank you for not making me into a villain I could pretend to be proud of." It was the kind of gratitude I didn't know how to spend. Autumn looked better on the city than it did on us. I learned how to live alone without performing it. It turns out the trick is to buy a new mug and not pretend it is an event. I learned which nights I could handle the quiet and which nights I needed to hear other people failing at pool in the bar near my building. I collected small mercies. The woman at the fruit stand who always put 2 extra plums in my bag because you choose like a man who can cook. The conductor who brought me a chocolate because you handled the Sunday outage without making us feel like children. The way the 0710 driver waved at my window in the morning because he had learned I sometimes watch trains leave instead of sleeping. In November, John left for Vienna. I know because a mutual friend posted a photo of an airport coffee with a caption that said, "He'll bring back different light." I also know because Lydia sent me a single sentence the same day. It was easier to say no when the train was far away. I answered, "I am still here." She wrote, "So am I." And then we were quiet for a week, which felt like a skill. Winter returned. The station's heaters did their best. People became kinder in the particular ways cold makes people. A young couple asked me to take their picture in front of the big board the night they decided to run away together to the next city and see if they could stand not speaking their mother tongues. I took the photo. I said nothing. The board behind them announced as ever, facts that did not care about our metaphors. On a Thursday in December, Lydia came to the station with a paper bag from our bakery, the one with the blue rye outline. We sat in my office, which is generous to no one. She took out 2 sandwiches, the simple ones we used to eat the summer we painted the kitchen ourselves, and swore never to buy chairs that pretended to be older than us. We ate like people who had been taught to chew. She said, "I'm leaving the magazine," or rather, they are letting me leave with a note that says, "Mutual." I said, "Are you all right?" She said, "Ask me in March." And I laughed because I remembered what we were like in March. "I can come back," she said suddenly, like a dare to herself. "Not to the same house, not to the same version, but to the kind where our mornings are sentences and not alibis." "No affairs?" I said, and winked, because flirting with your wife across a paperwork is either a tragedy or comedy, and I have never been good at choosing. "No affairs," she said. "If I ever want to leave again, I will tell you during coffee and not from a platform." "We can try," I said, "on a timetable we choose." This is the part in lesser stories where people leap across a chasm and the music instructs you to applaud. In this story, we did something less athletic. We wrote down, on a napkin stained with mustard, the 3 things we would begin and the 3 we would stop. Begin, sitting together for 20 minutes before 9 without screens, telling the other the truth even if it did not fit the mood, walking by the river without using the walk to fix anything. Stop, using competence as a stand-in for intimacy, using work as a narcotic, scheduling our sorrow. We did not move back in together. We saw each other 3 times a week in places our marriage had not already colonized. A tea shop in the East District, a park bench under the grim statue of a poet who had never successfully loved anyone, a laundromat where the owner lets you read her novels, draft by draft. We spoke from the middle of ourselves. She told me she had begun painting without commissions again. I told her I had taught a young employee how to calm a drunk without calling a guard. We did not promise future. We promised weather reports. On the first day of the new year, I realized I had kept her ring in my pocket for 3 weeks without remembering it was there. That felt like a sign of its own. I took it out and held it up to the light of our station's miserly lamp and thought about how metal remembers, how it wears the skin of its history like a polite costume. I sent her a message. Coffee, she said, bridge in 20. The bridge, not the one from the article, but the little one near the depot, the one children call the short promise. We met in the middle. I put the ring in her hand and said, this is not a proposal. It is an object returning to its owner for safekeeping. If it wants to live here again, let it say so in a voice we both understand. She nodded. She did not put it on. She put it in her pocket without performing its absence. We stood and watched a train move under us. You can feel the weight of a train pass like a decision under your feet. We let it do that. Spring is honest because it doesn't need your agreement. In March, the station filled with children on field trips and old men on their way to see grandchildren and women who had decided to start again somewhere else. We made announcements, the kind that sound like kindness because we don't bark them. Lydia got a small studio near the market with a window that had never known a decent curtain. She invited me to its first afternoon and did not ask me to help hang anything, which I took as affection. We painted the room together and got paint on our noses because lovers do cliches when they deserve to. In April, a man with a cello started playing in the tunnel under the east platform. The acoustics made people generous. Lydia wrote about him in a way that did not bring back the magazine, but found her a home on a small site that publishes essays about why people do anything. John sent her a one-sentence note in reply to the essay. You sound like you. She showed it to me because secrets had been demoted. I shrugged. She deleted it without performing deletion. In June, after a day that began with a broken ticket machine and ended with a stranded hen party who preferred our benches to any planned bar, I came home and found Lydia sitting on my steps. She was not crying. She was wearing the ring. She said, I would like to talk about chairs and curtains and whether we can stand my snoring, which is how she proposes. I said we can attempt the snoring, which is how I accept. We did not move fast. We moved deliberately. We signed a lease on a slightly bigger apartment 1 block closer to a bakery that now gives us the muffins that break wrong. We learned finally the difference between repair and resurrection. Repair is what you do to wood that has known weather. It involves glue and clamps and patience you cannot schedule. Resurrection is what you demand from God when you are trying to avoid the responsibility of changing the habits that bent the wood in the first place. I stopped expecting magic. She stopped expecting rescue. We began to expect ordinary decency from ourselves. You will want to know about Yan. He returned and then left, then returned again. His photos made a building feel handsome and a person feel briefly taller. He and I nodded twice in a year, which in station language is a peace treaty. Lydia and I do not say his name unless the story requires it. I will not pretend I am a saint. Sometimes when the 2105 leaves, I feel an old itch in my hands. It goes away quicker now. The timetable board says, departed, and I choose to believe it. On a Wednesday in late summer, one of those evenings when the sky wants to lie about autumn, we hosted a small event on Platform 1, poems and songs for the workers, the cleaners and conductors, the people who carry the city after midnight. Lydia read a piece about bridges and benches. I stood 2 meters behind her and watched the crowd do the thing I love most, go quiet together for reasons that cannot be invoiced. The cello player tuned. A child clapped too early and made everyone happier. A woman from my staff cried, not because the words were tragic, but because they fit. After Under the Clock, that now kept time, Lydia slipped her hand into mine. She said, are we okay? Then I said, we are a timetable we are writing as we run. We laughed. We kissed the utilitarian kiss of married people who have outlived their worst idea. A kid on the stairs shouted, gross, and his mother shushed him, and I loved them more than I could explain. I still carry keys. I still know how to open doors on nights when storms argue with electricity. When trains are late, I tell people the truth with a voice that gets them through it. At home, I try to speak with the same voice. Some days I succeed. Some days I am tired and the old habits crowd the platform, and I have to hold up my hand and let only one through. The timetable board still doesn't lie. It tells me when Lydia's cousin is arriving and when my brother has decided to visit unannounced and how much time I have to buy a bread that will still be warm when I get to our kitchen. It tells me without drama that life is mostly arrivals and departures and the art of waiting without becoming bitter. When the board says a train has left, the train has left. But there is something else too. There is the part where another number appears in black and the platform fills with people who have not yet decided who they intend to be when they step into whatever comes next. Tonight, when my shift ends, I will walk home over the short bridge. I will stop in the middle and lean on the rail and listen to the city promise things it can't possibly keep and keep things it never promised. I will go upstairs and find Lydia falling asleep on the sofa with a book over her face like a sensible shield. I will take off her glasses because she always forgets and put them on the table and tell her there will be coffee in the morning and mean it. Then I will set the alarm for a time that does not hurt because we finally learned how to do that for each other. This is not the first life we have lived together. It is the one we chose after the others failed to keep their own schedules. It will break somewhere, later, differently. When it does, I hope the part of me that knows how to tell a crowd the truth without humiliating it will speak to us, and we will obey. Until then, we will keep time we can live with. And if I ever find another ticket stub in a pocket I did not expect, I will not consult the board first. I will ask a human question at a human hour and wait for a human answer. That, I have learned, is the only timetable that deserves light.